Hello everyone, I am Alyan and I am back again with another interview and my today guest name is Sir Nigel. So welcome sir, it's so great to have you here again after a long time. So how are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. Um, Sitting
Thank
here
you.
in Vienna at home, surrounded by happy things. Be Happy behind me, and an art piece from Petra Hohenwarter in Bavaria that I've had for a long time, and Mr. Happy blanket on the chair, surrounded by colour. And I have my daughter here who's with me off screen. There's her hand. How are
Yeah,
you?
I am good and thank you so much for coming here. So sir, before moving on the question, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nigel Stonham, an Englishman in Vienna. I've been here since 1999. I spent the first years in England, came up through Boy Scouting, through school, university, gardening, and then worked for corporate America for a long time, and then came to Vienna for a new start to life, as it turned out to be.
Okay,
And
so
yeah.
okay. Thank you so much for introduction, sir. So my first question in your scale, you went from being a boy scout to an IBM salesman to MBA to a happiness coach. What was life trying to tell you through all these changes?
That's good. I'm pausing here to show that I'm thinking about it. I wanted to say, and I say to people, I've said most of what I'm saying to people as I've seen them through the last years. As a kid, I gained, oh no, my screen's gone. As a kid, I gained an education at home with grandparents, at church, in the Boy Scouts, in the garden, the allotment, on holidays and everything. I had a very varied and I want to say happy childhood. Much of it was happy, some of it wasn't, of course. I also learned stuff through BBC TV, Radio 4, Capital Radio, etc., and through reading a lot of books. I started reading a lot of books. I went to university. I saw and took opportunities. I met new people. I came across new ideas. I saw a poster for a summer in Australia and applied for that and got a place. I went to Australia for 3 months, and I'm still in touch with some of the people there. I've got great memories. I saw a poster for a travel competition in the university travel office, had their help to apply for the competition, and won a place and went on an interrail trip to Brindisi with a friend, and we caught a ferry across to Athens. I saw a poster. I bought a book on climbing. I was a fan of climbing. I was in the Mountaineering Society. I bought a book on Everest Mount Southwest Face by Chris Bonington, and decided I wanted to go and walk the Everest base camp trek, which I did after I left university. I spent 3 months in India and Nepal. What did life teach me? I saw good and bad places, safe and dangerous places, and safe and dangerous activities. And I saw good and bad people, good and bad. It's more like, as I've learned now, people doing bad things or people doing good things, whatever that is, people making places safe, people doing the opposite. Life, to answer your question, life was telling me years later with reflection and more learning that people are people and that all of them have a choice in what they do, and our lives are made up from the choices we make.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer, sir. So, when did you first realize the happiness was something you actually wanted to dedicate your life to?
In 2012, I was on a sports weekend with university friends, and I had to escape from the kitchen early in the morning. I'm an early riser. I couldn't get out through the back door because I couldn't find the key. I was outside. I climbed through the window. I was sitting on the grass in the sunshine, and I decided that I wanted to spend the rest of my life traveling the world, spreading happiness. And at the time, I was working with my girlfriend and her art project Happiness, and I would come up with the concept of an 11,000-mile art display wrapping the globe with the moments of happiness from her project. And this was called Miles of Smiles, and we actually had some postcards with Miles of Smiles on it. And I burst out laughing in the garden in the sunshine because I recalled that my mother's maiden name was Betty Miles, and that, of course, rhymed with Miles of Smiles. She was very influential in my life, as my father was, and my brother and other family members.
Thank you so much for your wonderful answer. So you said we are not training happiness, we do things which increase focus on happiness. Can you explain that for someone hearing it for the first time?
That's good, because I've got a blank space on my document here. I don't appear to have written the answer in, or if I did write it, I'm not sure what it was. People ask me if I can make them happy, and I say, no, I can't make you happy. People can increase their focus on happiness by surrounding themselves with happy things that make them happy. Comfort blankets. I'm wearing clothes that I put on this morning because they feel good. They make me feel good. And I was thinking about changing and trying to look a bit smarter, but I, A, didn't have time to, and B, I'm very happy with what I'm wearing anyway. So that makes me happy. If we're doing things that make us the opposite of happiness, we should look to see whether we can move away from them. There's some materials later on which can improve our focus on happiness. We'll come back to that one, please.
Okay, thanks so much for your answer. So how do you define happiness, and that definition changed over the years?
I started on my journey as a happiness coach in an English lesson in 2006 in Vienna. And over the time, I've asked many people what their definition of happiness is. And I've received many different answers. Someone said, if you ask 27 people, you'll probably get, no, they said, if you ask 1,000 people, you'll probably get 27 different answers. And I said, when I ask 1,000 people, I expect to get 1,000 different answers. Happiness is a personal thing, and it's kind of subjective. I define happiness quite clearly. I define it as two things, a state and a moment. So as a state, in a state of happiness, I define myself as a happy person and view the world from that perspective. And it mirrors it back to me. So I see lots of happy people in the world. As a happy person, I experience moments of happiness, which is the second definition. And I also experience moments of sadness, anger, grief, frustration, joy. So I experience the full range of emotions as a happy person. And how does one cope with things that make one less than happy? You can choose to make everything a learning experience and say, what did I learn from this? So that's something I've learned, that one can choose to look at a thing as a learning experience.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for your answer. So is happiness a coach, or is it something that happens to you?
As a choice, being a happy person is a choice, as I've said. So I choose to be a happy person. I am a happy person. I developed that in the coaching, and that's a different story. Moments of happiness happen to you, and they're either planned. You do something like, I'm going to meet a friend for coffee later on, or do something like take a journey and look out the window of the train, or they happen by chance. If you get a smile on the street from a stranger, or last night I was at an event and the people were laughing on the other side of the room, and that increased my happiness. Other things, the opposite, typically happen outside of our control, like a dropped ice cream from a child was an example I started on very early on. A rude comment from someone else can upset us, or a pet dying. Those are things we can't control. And the logic talking about balance, I was saying, if we build up our stock of happy moments, then, and we can control that, then that makes the opposite times when they occur less important, and therefore we maintain our status better. And I see this as deposits and withdrawals in the bank of happiness, the happiness bank.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much for this wonderful answer, sir. Okay, so what's the biggest myth people believe about happiness?
This was a good one. I was stuck for a moment, but then I remembered, and I was doing my happiness coaching, doing my English lesson when Barack Obama was voted in as president, I said, this is a monumental moment. Sadly, I then said, I don't think he'll be able to do much because he's kind of like a puppet for the people behind him and everything, but that's a different thing. But that did lead me to the American Constitution, or the Constitution of the United States of America, and that being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I felt during my stuff that we are in a chase for happiness. We're trying to get more cars, more washing machines, more partners, thinking that will bring us happiness. Money as a means rather than money as an end rather than a means, and thinking about the end point rather than the journey. Interestingly, I researched this several years later, and I found out that because I wanted to change the Constitution in 2008, I wanted to change the American Constitution to life, liberty, and being happy. Then I discovered that when it was written, pursuit actually meant practice, which meant life, liberty, and the practice of being happy. And that's something that I'd like to increase awareness on.
Okay, thanks so much for your answer. So you started the Vienna Happiness Project. What was the moment that you made start it?
I'm sorry for rocking around here. I'm trying very hard to sit still and not jump around too much. I've always found it very hard to sit still, and I'm trying to control that at the moment by rocking, so I don't go out of the picture too much. I started the Happiness Project in around about 2009, 2010, at the north end of the underground here in Vienna, at the end of the U4, as we call it. They installed a digital screen 2 meters by 80 centimeters roughly, and it was black, so I could see this. I came from an IT background. I worked in IT, and I thought, this is interesting. A long time before that, I'd seen a TV advert in England where there was an advert I didn't really follow, but at the bottom it was www.3m.com. So you could go to that web address and find the information that they were presenting. At the time, we were doing Art Project Happiness, and I saw these screens as an opportunity waiting. I asked Petronella if she could make some images for the screen. I then went along to the owner of the screens and proposed that he sponsor our display on his screens. In order to have an easy to remember web address, we came up with the viennahappinessproject.com, which we registered and we had for a long time, but then we were paying money for it and we're not paying for it anymore. So that's not there as a .com. It's as a Substack now, which is a free of charge one. So it's viennahappinessproject.substack.com. Actually, it's the Austrian Happiness Project. I'm trying to stick to my script because I have a tendency to faff around, and that's what I was doing with this bloke. And after doing all of this with my yellow energy, he then says, as a driver, he says, "What do you want, Nigel?" And I said, "I want some advertising on your screens." And he said, "Okay, here's 10,000 euros worth of advertising, Nigel, go away."
That's interesting. Okay, so you started coaching happiness in 2006 with a group of finance people. How did the first very session go?
Fantastically, awesome, amazing. It was brilliant. It was in an English lesson. I prepared for it. One of the few English lessons I actually prepared for beforehand, and took 5 minutes. I had a flip chart and I'd written on it, because I wanted to talk about love. Money Can't Buy Me Love, which was a Beatles song. And then I didn't feel comfortable with that. I turned the page over and I wrote happiness, define, measure, compare, and increase. So I had 5 words when these group of managers, finance people came in about then. And we talked on those moments, on those points as questions. What is happiness? Tell me what you think happiness is. How do you define happiness? How do you measure happiness? And how do you compare? I was in the kitchen making coffee just before this, and I remembered another point I wanted to add at the end as to what we should do. And I'm going to add it in here because I didn't manage to put it in. What I'm encouraging people to do through life is to prepare themselves 80% for anything that comes up, and then be prepared. And this comes from my sales training at IBM. Then you can handle anything, objections. You can ask to come back with more information if you don't know it, but to be prepared at the 80% level so that you can handle anything. So being that prepared for these points and asking questions to get them talking, we just developed from there. And that was how it began. And I've done that same format many times. But as you'll see in a moment, I've got it down from 90 minutes to 20 seconds now.
Okay, thanks so much for your answer. So, what kind of person usually come to you for coaching, and what are they really looking for?
I'm hesitating there. People come. I believe most people don't actually know what they're looking for. So only a few people have actually defined what they're looking for. This comes onto a different coaching rather than the happiness coaching. People don't really come to me. They see happiness coach as my headline title. I have other projects I'm working on. Some say, wow, that's amazing. What is it? Some say, how do you do that? How does that work? And can you make a living for it? And from it to that, I say, am I alive? I've said that many times. I seem to be alive. 20 seconds. So I was wondering whether I actually go through this with you, but I'm not. I'm just going to say how it goes. So I ask people if I can ask them a question. I did this last night and a couple other times yesterday. If they say yes, I say, may I ask you how happy you'd say you are on a scale of 1 to 10? Lady last night said 9. I said, brilliant, fantastic. That's really good. Would you be interested in going to 10? She said, yes. And I said, great, thank you. Can you give me 3 things that you think would take you from 9 to 10? And she very kindly gave me 3 things. I had to be patient because I wanted to say, please come back when you thought about it, because I find it difficult to watch people think. But we waited and it was great. She gave me 3 things. Those are her things. And what I said to her then is, it's your happiness. Those are things that you've just defined spontaneously that you think would improve it. You can change them over time. I'm working to give you a process where you say, it's my happiness. How do I go from here to here? Here are 3 things. Once I've defined those, who can I ask for help if necessary? Or is the answer in me? Once I've actually defined them and written them down, mostly the answer comes or new ideas come. And my aim is for them to see the steps, to own their happiness, and to ask for help or support elsewhere later.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. So, how do you help someone who has everything but still feels empty?
This was very interesting because you gave me 20 questions. I'm very grateful. At this point, I realized I'd spent an hour writing the first 10 answers and I only had 15 minutes left for the next 10. So these are a little bit hurried, but I'm really grateful to you for your questions. The interview, it's nice doing live. I'm not a great fan of being live in case I put my foot in my mouth, which does happen.
What do you mean put your foot in your mouth?
When I mean by putting my foot in my mouth is if I make an error that's on video forever, like Neil Kinnock falling over on Brighton Beach when he was Prime Minister at the party conference, and it's still running around YouTube 40 years later. Yeah, exactly. So how do I help someone who has everything but still feels empty? One of the things I came to at the end of this, because the question's good and I hadn't had it before, I fell back to one of my questions, which is, let's define everything. Let's define empty. Let's define feeling, because often people say things and then if you actually play back to them what they've said, I have a habit of replying to people in exactly the same words that they've said, because then they either realize that I've just said what they said, or they say, that doesn't sound very sensible. I said, well, it's your words. You just said it. So what did you mean? But it also saves me having to think of an answer if I just repeat back. Try it and you see how many times you can do it. Some of my salespeople friends in the old days used to go into a sales meeting and they'd go in with a word or 3 words and they had to bring the words like dinosaur and pterodactyl into a conversation, a sales presentation. So that was quite fun. I never did that myself, and I didn't have a plan to bring those words into this, although it may seem that. How to help someone: point them to world-class materials. When I started in 2006, there wasn't that much stuff around, and some of my friends were saying, oh, happiness, you should be talking about resilience or well-being or something. But I stuck with happiness. I've got consistency in my brands, and 10 years later, they were saying, oh, seems to be quite popular, this happiness thing now, Nigel. Yeah. So there's stuff like Mr. Happy, the video, which is and the book, which is written by Roger Hargreaves from England years ago. It's a children's book, but it's I can summarize that at some other point, and you can watch the video on YouTube. I'll summarize it now. Basically, Mr. Happy lives in Happy Land. Everyone and everything's happy. He goes out one day, meets Mr. Miserable, who would give anything to be happy, but can't see a way he ever could be. Mr. Happy invites him to Happy Land, and soon they're laughing. I am amazingly lucky because 15 miles north of here, there's a physical place called Happy Land, a sports and free time center, which is called Happy Land. It's been running for 30 years. So I'm looking to take people from Vienna to Happy Land physically, but also spiritually, whatever, by getting them to understand what happy is. I'm building Happy Land physically and emotionally, inviting people to come in. There are some rules because, as in life, if we don't follow the rules that make society run smoothly, we can get some problems. Interestingly, a bit of a divergence, and this is freestyling. Someone explained to me the Japanese theory of clearing up the classrooms and everything, which I know you guys have been doing over there. And I was a bit skeptical about that. But then I understood someone was saying Japan's really good. They do this stuff with children. If parents are no longer doing this at home, or if you're entering a new country as a refugee or asylum seeker or as a migrant without parents and you don't have that family background, then maybe it should be down to society and the village and the school to instill those things in us, because at the end of the day, it helps us. Kids without boundaries and without borders grow up, sadly, can grow up lost, in my view. And I have physically experienced the result of people being lost. And that's one of my motivators, to see if I can guide people. Like in the Boy Scouts, we did map reading. We went from A to B. I'm keen to encourage people through happiness coaching or other coaching to go from A to B. I'm keeping an eye on the time.
And to go from B to C.
And from B to C. From A to B via C, as well as A to B to C. Logical incrementalism from my MBA in an efficient and effective manner. So, not in the video, love.
I'm not in the
Okay.
video. Hugging you.
Thank you. I know. I can feel it. So we got stuck on Mr. Happy there. The other materials, the Happy Manifesto from Henry Stewart in the UK, which is a corporate thing. Companies, he runs an event as well. Happy Cities from an architect in Vancouver. And 10 Keys to Happier Living by a UK psychologist, which is part of the Action for Happiness movement in the UK, which has got something like 1.2 million followers now. So it's gone pretty mainstream. I'd ask them to think about 3 things that they'd feel make them happier. I'd ask them about the definitions, as I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful answer, sir. So what advice would you give a 16 years old to trying to figure out who they are?
16, okay. Good move. I would suggest that they try lots of things until they find something that they feel passionate about. In 2008 here, I formed an association, a legal entity called Internationaler Kulturverein, Blue Sky Stuff. The Blue Sky Stuff was my bit. The German bit was what the Polizei for the Verein wanted here, to a bit of Germanizing. And basically the motto was there: inspire and motivate people to find and follow their passion. My non-profit kind of entity is inspire and motivate people to find and follow their passion by doing things, by trying sports, by reading stuff, by meeting people, by reading about role models, by doing what you're doing. You told me that you've developed a lot over the last 2 years since we spoke last time, and that's brilliant. I would encourage them to educate themselves, because educate is important, to the 80% level that I was talking about. And I'd also encourage them to travel. I would like, and I'm working on this, I'd like 10,000 Austrians to go abroad for 3 months. When they come back, they will be naturally, they'll have their minds broadened from the travel. And also, I believe Vienna will be happier, because people who've lived here all their life and stayed here don't realize how lucky they are. And therefore, they should travel, see the world. And when they come back, they'll be happier. And also, Don't worry, because you're not supposed to know what you're going to do when you're 16. Do lots of stuff. I didn't have a clue till I was 37. I say to people, you got time yet.
Thank you so much for
What advice would you give? Stay alive.
thank you so much for this wonderful advice. So my last question is, if you could spare one idea to every person to the on the planet, what would it be?
Happiness is a choice. Choose happiness.
Okay, that's great. So thank you, Sir Nigel. Thank you so much for your time today. This was a truly inspiring. Everyone, make sure to check out Sir Nigel's link below, and I will see you in the next. So thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.